During US President Donald Trump's visit to China, Chinese President Xi Jinping had made one thing abundantly clear. Taiwan is Beijing's red line, and it seems that Trump has understood that message very well. In an interview with Fox News, Trump said that he does not want anyone in Taiwan trying to fight for independence. Listen to this.
You're waiting on approving billions of dollars of weapons for Taiwan.
That's right.
Is that moving forward?
Well, I haven't approved it yet. We're going to see what happens.
What are you looking for?
I may do it, I may not do it.
Yeah, what's your hinge point?
Well, I'm not going to say that, but I may do it, I may not do it. But we're not looking to have wars, and if you kept it the way it is, I think China's going to be okay with that. But we're not looking to have somebody say, let's go independent because the United States is backing us.
Trump made the statement while he was still in Beijing. He was answering a question about potential new weapons sale to Taipei. Aboard Air Force One on his way back from China trip, Trump reiterated that he has yet to make a decision on the sale.
On Taiwan, he feels very strongly. I made no commitment either way. We'll see what happens.
What about the arms sales to Taiwan?
I'll make a determination over the next fairly short period.
You're not necessarily going to go ahead. It was your proposal.
I'm going to make a determination. I'm going to see. I have to speak to the person that right now is, you know who he is, that's running Taiwan.
During Trump's China visit, Xi Jinping had warned of a potential clash between the US and China if the Taiwan issue wasn't handled well. Now, Xi had cautioned Trump in no uncertain terms that the issue of Taiwan was the most important in the China-US relationship. For now, Trump seems to be weighing his options carefully. However, Taiwan's foreign ministry put out a statement on Friday evening where it noted Trump's comments from Air Force One and pointed out that American arms sales to Taipei are a security commitment explicitly set out in the Taiwan Relations Act. The 1979 law means that Washington is bound by law to provide weapons to Taipei so that it may defend itself against potential aggression by Beijing. Taiwan has been watching Trump's China visit very closely, and on Thursday, after Xi's warning, Taipei had shot back with this. Listen in.
The Chinese side expects the United States to stop selling weapons to Taiwan, then they should first review their own military threats toward Taiwan. Just this morning, we detected 3 Chinese military aircraft and 6 naval vessels operating around the Taiwan Strait.
Now, Xi Jinping has not ruled out force in his goal to reunify Taiwan with mainland China. Now, Trump says he's considering his stance on weapons for the self-governed island. Together, these developments are likely to further worry the government and the people of Taiwan. Back in US, Democratic members of Congress and some Republicans, they say that they support an arms sale to Taiwan and the US defending the island's elected government, despite US President Donald Trump's hesitation on sending weapons there. And to discuss more, we're now being joined by Ross Tarrell Feingold. He's a political analyst joining us from Taipei, Taiwan. Mr. Feingold, thank you so much for joining us. Let's start with Washington's established position, which is that it does not support Taiwanese independence, but with continuous ties with Beijing, and those being contingent on its acceptance that there is only one Chinese government. The Taiwan question has emerged as the most important issue in China-US relations, and she has even warned that if mishandled, the two nations could come into conflict. How do you anticipate Trump walking this tightrope?
The safest approach, I think, from the perspective of President Trump and most of his team would be to say that U.S. policy remains unchanged. And that's basically what President Trump, as well as Secretary of State Rubio, has said to media in recent hours. Now, people like scholars and experts on U.S.-China relations or on Taiwan-China relations or Taiwan-U.S. relations, they look very carefully at the particular phrasing and the details of the wording that was used, and they look for changes versus what a past U.S. Government or president might have said. And they try to read a lot into that. But I would caution against too much of that over-analysis. And again, I think the approach that President Trump and Secretary of State Rubio have taken in recent hours is to say that U.S. policy is not changed. Now, what is that U.S. policy? I mean, it is a very complex question. It's hard to condense into a short answer. But as you said, the U.S. has not supported a formal declaration of independence by Taiwan. At the same time, the U.S. has continuously sold weapons to Taiwan, and the U.S. has also opposed China using military force to take over Taiwan. So I think it's safe to say at the moment, none of that has changed, or in other words, U.S. policy is unchanged.
Right, Mr. Feingold, we hear you, and that's a fair point that even a small change in phraseology, something as small as not opposing to being against Taiwanese independence, could have serious ramifications. And we also know that in December, the Trump administration, it announced an $11 billion arms sales to Taiwan, which Beijing had condemned. But we understand that Taiwan is also a key component of, the administration's efforts to create a secure supply chain for the United States high-tech sector. And backtracking on the ties, it could come with cost for the United States as well. And now with Trump showing visible hesitation on the issue, how is Taipei reading into that?
I think Taiwan is going to have to just keep doing what it needs to do. So investing in its own defense, which includes domestic spending. Not long ago, the length of mandatory military service was extended from 4 months to 1 year. The legislature here in Taiwan recently did pass a budget to pay for some of those weapons to be purchased from the U.S. that you referred to. And also Taiwan will have to make good on its very large investment commitments that it made as part of a trade deal with the United States. Hundreds of billions of dollars investment commitment, very similar to the European Union, Japan, and Korea. So the only option, again, Taiwan has is to keep doing what it's doing. And it would be, I think, very foolish for Taiwan to make negative statements about what President Trump has said. It's not going to serve their interest. In fact, the foreign ministry here in Taiwan, at least after Secretary of State Rubio's remarks in an interview in recent hours, they did rush to issue a statement saying thank you and we appreciate Secretary of State Rubio for reiterating that U.S. policy is unchanged. So again, really the only thing Taiwan can do is keep doing what it's doing and prepare accordingly.
Right, and having said that, we know that U.S. has long supported Taiwan, including being bound by law to provide it with the means of self-defense. But now with Washington arguably in a tight spot with domestic pressure mounting and the conflict in West Asia looming large, and of course it is in a desperate need of a geopolitical win, is there a real possibility that Trump could make a concession on Taiwan in exchange for help with the Iran issue?
I don't think the Trump administration really believes that China could influence Iran to make the significant concessions that the Iranian government up to now refuses to make. And specifically, that's on its nuclear program and long-range ballistic missile program, and more recently, the issue of closing the Strait of Hormuz. I think the U.S., of course, would have brought it up. I also think it was very important for the U.S. to communicate to China that the U.S. has zero tolerance if China was to sell weapons to Iran at this time. But realistically, I think the U.S. knows that China is not going to issue orders to Iran for Iran to make concessions. So I don't think there really was a trade-off to be had as far as U.S. getting China's help with Iran, and in turn, the U.S. would make some concessions on Taiwan. I don't think there was ever really the possibility of that happening, but certainly there is a lot of speculation about it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mr. Feingold, for joining us on the broadcast and sharing your perspective with us.
Thank you.